And then, and I think we are live, yes? Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are. It's morning here. Hello from San Francisco in the IDEO shop. I'm Leta, and this is my fabulous colleague, Priti. Hi. So Priti is also a senior design researcher here at IDEO. So welcome, and thanks. Here we are at IDEO U office hours. First off, we are so excited for those of you joining, and we're so excited for how many of you are participating. We are learning a lot, and of course, I hope you are too. So here we are broadcasting. I'm gonna swing you around the shop. This is where a lot of the build happens at IDEO. So pardon me while I swing you this way. Here's some of all of our different, a lot of those are our wood tools. We have a nice bandsaw behind us. In that room is our laser cutter, laser cam, some different prototyping spaces over here. Anyway, we wanted to show you, this is one of our favorite spots. Although we're focusing on insights and seeing with fresh eyes, it's all in the interest of designing and making. So let's see. You all know me. Hi, I'm Leta. I've loved getting to know a lot of you on the platform as well. So Priti is also a senior design researcher, been with IDEO for many years. Lots of global international experience, which we know is important to a lot of you. Do you want to share a few more things about?
Yeah, hi guys, so excited to chat with you this morning. And I'm Priti. I've been with IDEO for over 3 years now and started in our India office and have been in San Francisco for the last year. And super excited to hear your questions today.
And we have one other person who's off camera. I'm gonna pull her in. This is Katie.
Hi everybody.
So Katie has also gotten to know a lot of you. So she's been heavily involved with designing and helping to just create this wonderful experience for you. So Katie is going to be off screen helping to manage some of the questions that come in, but she'll pop in. Yes. So don't mind us if you see us looking that way. We're looking at Katie. Here's how today is going to work. We are going to start the first part of this by going through some pre-submitted questions. Many of you have asked some wonderful questions, and we'll take some time to share some of our thoughts. And then, of course, we would love for you to submit questions. And there's a few ways you can do that. First up, I want you to get on the chat channel if you are not already. So in your upper right corner of your screen, you should see this grid of squares. Go ahead and click on that, and you should see the option to join the group chat. And from there, then you can start to, sorry, you can't all be on audio with us, but you can all type, and we will see all the questions as they come up. That's the first thing. Then yes, we are going to be doing live Q&A via that chat channel. Either that, or for those of you on Twitter, we can also take questions via the
and hashtag AskIDEOU.
Yep. We would love to start by finding out who's here. So I'd love for you to go ahead and start by your name, your city, country, and your industry. And we'll just take a minute to kind of see. I know we have at least a dozen or so viewers on already. And let's see who else we have. Let's get to know some of you, especially where you're from. Look. In the meantime, Priti and I will quench our thirst. Cheers. Cheers. Good morning. Good morning. It's early for us. It's probably late for some of you. We'll go ahead, as some of you are warming up, we'll go ahead and get started with a couple of questions as well. Why don't we're doing a little technical setup here. Hold on one second. I want to make sure we can see everything. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to get started with the questions. Let's do that. But I do. Oh, now I'm starting to see stuff. We've got Boulder, Colorado in the house. All right. We'll start seeing more as well. Hoping there's some international folks. Let's start with a question from Arun. So one of his questions was, how do you encourage a research participant to share how they think and feel during a journey? I love this question.
Yeah.
I have a couple.
Okay.
I'm going to start with an example from a project we did. We were designing new products and services for parents, new parents, and we would go out to the homes of new parents with lots of little kids, newborns, and we started by asking them to tell us about their journey through the first 3 trimesters. And what we did is we would create a timeline of the 3 trimesters and, of course, birth of the baby. There's the little bundle of joy, and then onward. And we went in with a set of emoticon stickers. So they were just simple stickers with a sheet of stickers, each with a little different face. Happy, angry, confused. And we asked people to take any of those stickers and identify 3 moments in this experience that stood out for them. 3 memorable moments, emotional moments. And so they would take their sticker and kind of place it on here. You know, when I found out, you know, the sex of the baby. When I realized that I needed more sleep and I needed to hire someone to help me overnight. So I love this as an example of defining enough of the journey that anyone can answer, but it's open-ended enough that it's a canvas for your stories, for you to layer on, for me, what was important to you. So I'm not making those assumptions or constraining it, but really enabling you to tell me how it feels.
That's awesome.
So that's one example.
Yeah, I have a story too. You know, we were working on a project for designing new washing machines, and we wanted to know, like, what do people go through when they're trying to get or buy a washing machine? Like, how does it work? So we actually went on a shop along with one of our users and actually took them to a retail store. And that way we could actually, you know, learn what was the first thing they gravitated towards. Like, you know, all washing machines look the same. Where did they go first in the store? Like, what are the questions they asked? You know, how did they check out the product? Like, how did they look at the information? So we were able to understand all of the steps they have to go through in order to, you know, decide which washing machine to get. So that is another way of, like, you know, closely shadowing someone along the actual journey.
I have another.
Yeah.
I have another. This was for a new service out in the world, and the client was trying to understand how people felt about it and how they heard about it. And so we created, this is a sloppy drawing, but we created a comic storyboard. And so what we did was we created these different cells of a comic and had people fill in the moments for us. So, like, it all began when, and they write in, I heard about, or whatever. And I really started to, you know, and I love this, 3 things I love about this are 3 things I love, and fill it in. But it's not, you know, it's not always great when, fill that in. And a year from now, I expect, so it's like a storybook Mad Libs. I have a lot of, people love filling this out. And then what's wonderful too is you get, again, it's one canvas, but a lot of different rich stories. You can imagine doing this with 10 different people. So
Cool. Should we take this?
Yeah, we can go to the next question. I also want to see, sorry, we're looking, so I'm looking up at the chat channel. We're looking at some of those. So we've got Peru and healthcare. We actually have a team in Peru right now. Love it. Another, some people from San Francisco. Wonderful. Chicago.
Toronto. It's amazing. People from different backgrounds. Kevin from theatrical advertising.
I love that
From Monterey. From Trinidad. That is amazing.
That's
Colombia.
as happy as I'm to be with you right now. That's where I'd rather be. Hello from Trinidad.
That's amazing.
Colombia, yeah.
From UK.
And lots of, a really great cross-section of industries out there as well. Healthcare and media and theater and advertising. Awesome. I love hearing about the industries because that helps us know too how to curate some of our stories with you.
Yeah, from Dublin, Ireland. Hello there. Hopefully that's springtime now.
And there's always some good questions too. I'm looking at some great. We're going to continue on with we're going to do like about 5 of the pre-submitted questions. So go ahead and keep adding your questions. Katie will be curating and picking out for some for us to answer.
Cool.
We'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, should we get, there's one from Marilyn, and she asked, like, how do we handle, like, feelings of judgment when we are gathering insights and interpreting them? That's a great question. I mean, we're all humans, so it's hard to get away from the thinking, judging hat. But the beauty of being a researcher is you actually get to suspend that hat for a little bit, wear another hat, and that of being, like, curious. One time I remember being in Paris in the home of this rather eccentric person called Cyril, and we'd gone to interview him to understand his fashion style. And when we first entered his house, there was actually no place to stand. It was full of things like, objects and records and all kinds of things. And Cyril himself looked like one of a geek nerd. And when I started interviewing him, it was hard because I almost thought he wasn't like the person we were looking for. But then at the end of the interview, it turned out that he was actually just an eccentric guy who was the world's biggest fan of Jamiroquai. And he had like everything related to this musician, and he sold his television to buy a ticket to go to one of the concerts. So I just felt if you persist enough and you just put on your curiosity hat, you just get to know the story behind the story that you're seeing. And that's really important, when you're trying to, interview someone. And yes, like judgment is there, but just park it for a little bit.
Yeah. I love this question, and I think it is one of the harder ones. So there are, at some point in the process, you do bring in biases. We have to because we are as designers, you're not looking to just understand someone's story just to understand it. You're looking to understand someone's story so you can do something, so you can create action out of it. So of course, it does come a point where you bring in biases. I want to share one story. We were designing for a huge international healthcare company, and we were looking at how different people make decisions around their doctors. And there were quite a few people who would make decisions around, I just trust my doctor. I just trust him. I just trust him or her. I don't think about getting other opinions. And then there was a lot of people too that were around, I want to know everything. I'm a detective. I want to know all the options. And so you could see yourself designing for either of those groups. But what became important is we knew that the people who really trust their doctors, they're not probably going to use a website. They're not going to look up a lot of tools. That's just not there. So we made the judgment call that that's not the group we're going to design for, because their values are not around that. We're going to focus instead on the people who seek all of the options. And so of course, there's going to come points where you as a designer are making the judgment call on which needs you're going to design for and which ones you're not. That definitely comes in.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Should we take another one?
Yes. And thank you for all of you still
typing
keep
in.
adding in. We will come to that. We will start looking at that.
That's cool.
Just real quick. Yeah. Yes, we are recording the session. So yes, this is we will be recorded. This is being recorded and will be available for view afterwards.
Yes. For those who couldn't catch it live. So Sylvain asked this question, are there any tips or advantages in conducting observations or interviews via the digital channel? Do you want to go for it?
Yeah, I love this question. Yeah. So we know everyone has their preferred communication channels. Some people love the intimacy of talking one-on-one. I've worked with a lot of different teenagers, millennials, who prefer digital channels. So for example, we did a project with sales associates who were very much of a millennial generation, a lot of them college students, and we wanted to engage them in trying out some different prototypes in the store. So what we did it all via a blog. So we would send out the prototype experiment in the beginning of the week, and then all of the different associates would try it out and report via the blog. And it was a very natural medium for them. I have two others real quick.
Yeah.
Of course, Skype works for some people because we can't talk to, many times there's often a good expert who's only available via video. So yes, we do that. I feel out if video is the best. Some people are actually pretty uncomfortable on video. And so I'll make the call to switch it to audio. It can be intense, especially to talk to a stranger via video, unless you're very comfortable. Some people are more comfortable on audio. I want to give one other example. This was also with kids. We wanted to understand teenagers, actually it was tweens, and they were really shy, of course, talking to us live. And so we started what it was called video volleyball. And our team would record a quick video of themselves, so it'd be Priti and I, and we'd say something about ourselves, like this is something we're amazing at. And then we post a question. Tell us the last time you amazed yourself. We would send that to all the tweens, and on their own time, they would create their own video answering that and asking us a question back and then send it back to us. So it was a wonderful way to create a really intimate conversation that was in the medium that was most comfortable for those participants.
Yes, and I just want to add, I mean, we are in the digital age, so definitely use it. Especially like it is just so efficient to reach out to like people that are far away. I remember reading one of the students saying like, you know, my family's back in France, and it is a great way to do it. But there's another angle to it, is that actually it allows participants themselves to be researchers. So something we call autoethnography, where you can actually give them prompts and you know, to document moments that you might not have access to, like when they wake up, like, you know, a shot of that, or when they're going to bed, like, you know, times when you cannot be with them all the time. And that's also interesting, like what they actually choose to show, and you know what's important. So it's kind of empowering your participants to be researchers and achieving like a much more kind of global reach. Yeah. So yes, definitely use digital tools. We love them as much as we love like meeting people face to face. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll continue on. Yeah. I'm just going to prompt Katie to stick up some of the questions so we can start to see where things are. You can just stick them all over there. We'll move on to another one of our pre-selected ones. Mm-hmm. Which one do you want to do? Yeah. This is a good question. It's a gnarly one. She frames it as that. This one comes from Carly. How do you frame a project challenge? Where do you begin in translating a big, interesting topic into a focused and effective project? Mm-hmm. This is one of the, we could teach an entire course on this. I think this is one of the biggest challenges. I'm going to start with, we often encounter clients or organizations that come to us with what they think is the most important question. And then through seeing the world with fresh eyes and going out in the world and really talking to people, it often illuminates either a more important one or the one that we should focus on. So I want to give one example. There was a financial organization that came to us, and they wanted to enable more families to teach investing habits to their kids at younger ages. And so we went out to all these different families, and there was one family where the dad, I love this story, would purchase one share of stock for his kids in their favorite candy company. so if you love Tootsie Rolls, you could buy one share of stock. And so for his kids, what became, when they would get the annual report, which often included one piece of the candy, it became this really wonderful moment for them, and they started to actually care and kind of have a little interest in it. So we developed this whole suite of concepts around that, like how do you create that annual report in that moment to just be a really wonderful touch point, to be meaningful.
Absolutely.
So we tried this out with all these families, and we realized as much as they loved it, they said, but you know what? I'm not ready to start teaching my kids about investing. I really want to focus more on saving. I want to help them develop habits of savings. And the entire project shifted to that focus. How do we instill more around savings? So
powerful.
Yeah,
I just want to add, like, you know, actually one of the things, it is a great question, and we have it often. One thing I've found work time and again is actually just making something and putting it out there for people to react to. We had one, you know, big project where it was really, really wide open, you know, what we were going to design. And the team literally just came up with, you know, a few hacky prototypes that allowed us to have a conversation and like basically define the boundaries, because, you know, some people can actually react to something more tangible and say, no, actually that is not really, you know, what we're good at, or, you know, that's not something we want to focus on. And so I would encourage you, Carly, to actually just gather a bunch of friends, like, you know, do a wine and dine session and like throw out a few initial ideas at them and see what the responses are, and then go from there, you know, start to narrow down systematically. Yeah. But yeah, testing the boundaries, you know, through something tangible is a great way to do it too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
We can take any of those. Shoot. I'm gonna get Katie's opinion too. We're getting a lot. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep. All right. This one comes in from a Twitter channel from Otto. Hello, Otto. Thank you for jumping in. His question is, how do we make it easy for people to tell you things that they are ashamed of? I love this question.
Yeah.
I'll start. You know, so one of the things in the Seeing with Fresh Eyes course that we really, you hear me in the interviews part in particular, more important than the questions you ask is the rapport that you set. So I have definitely been in situations where people are sharing things that they're ashamed of or secretive, and I work really hard to make sure that you know, if I'm with you, that you know you're in safe hands. So I subscribe to a really rigid set of ethics when I start with anyone. I let them know everything you share is confidential. I let you know that you are the expert and I'm here to learn. And you'd be amazed. I'm always amazed at how much people share, because there's so many of us do want to be listened to. And so if I'm doing the right work and making sure that you feel respected, safe, and that I'm not judging you,
Yes.
I
Absolutely.
hear everything. We've done projects where watching people shower. How do you shower? We've done projects around health behaviors and bad behaviors. We've done projects around, there's been a lot of taboo projects that we do. So
Breast milk pumping.
yes, new mothers, personal lubricants, birth control. All of these things require us to create a space where people can be comfortable in sharing.
Yes.
And it's really up to you. It's less about the other person, it's about what you do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I was wondering, like, I actually get people together in a group with similar kind of backgrounds or issues, and then they start to open out a little bit more over like an informal setting and conversation, and suddenly it's okay. Other people have the same problem as you do, and it becomes okay to actually talk about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great question.
It is. I do want to share one other story because I love that. This is for we were trying to understand why people the value of diet drinks, and we were at this one home of this really well established professional guy who's probably in his early 30s, total bachelor pad. You walk in, there's this wonderful pool table and this high-end kitchen, and you could tell that he took his life very seriously. And then like he had two TVs in this, so he could watch sports and do all this stuff. And he had a lot of posturing about him. And it was strange in this space to see his entire fridge was diet type sodas and drinks and beers and alcohols and stuff, and or low calorie. And we kept kind of talking about it because he had such a lifestyle that was so charged up in all these other ways, and then all this diet stuff. And eventually we got to this space, and it was just pure curiosity. You know, like, tell me again, so why this? And he eventually said, I want to look good naked. and once he got to say that, he just opened up with all of these wonderful stories about what he values and why, and he still followed up with us afterwards. Like, I really enjoyed sharing that. And so I think it's important for you to have the courage to be open to receiving what people are about to give you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that is such a great story. Yeah, that's the one we want to talk.
Sorry, this is the next question.
Yeah, this is
next
Angela. Question. This is Angela who has a great question. How do you know when you have enough interviews? This is a great one. I mean, there is no set number like about how many interviews is great. I would say, when you start listening to the same stories over and over again, that's when and from then on, it's kind of like law of diminishing returns. Like, the more you interview, the less new stuff you find out. So just get your judgment. Just start talking to a few people, and then when it gets a little bit like, I've heard this story before, I can see this pattern again. That's kind of when you feel like you've got enough, and then go, try and make something with that, and then maybe go back and we'll get to that in the next course. But don't just interview forever. But just you'll get to know when is the moment when you're not hearing something new.
Yeah. I have a story about that too. I love this question. It comes up a lot. It's everything Priti said and following your intuition about it. So, for example, we had a project with, we were teaching the process to a bunch of high school students. Actually, it was college students, to design things for high school students. And so they were, they're not that far out of high school, so they know the world well. And they were talking to two high school students in a class. And one of them said, the thing that he wants most is legitimate platforms for his voice to be heard. It's like, all of the faculty and all the teachers tell us that they they're listening, but then we don't have actual outlets. Like we don't have actual ways to make change and do things. And it was really emotional how this high schooler spoke, and all of the other college students heard it. And after that high school student left, all the college students kind of looked at me and they said, well, how many, how do we know if we have enough interviews? This exact question. And, and we reflected as a team and said, how many times would you need to hear a student say that they want a legitimate platform to know that that's actually a really good space to design for? So there's oftentimes a single interview can surface a need that is so dramatic and so real that if you solved for that one person, you'd solve for hundreds. And so I think part of it is back to what you said, it's the intuition of sometimes you hear a few themes, sometimes a single interview can surface an entire landscape of what's the right thing to do.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. So, yeah, moving on, we have another great question from Lindsay. How do you present your insights to clients or team in a way that inspires empathy? This is a great question. I mean, one thing is, of course, if they're directly with you in the field, that's the best. Like experiencing it firsthand. A story that I have about that one is, we were with a client who was trying to design for limited hotel service, limited service hotels. And, it was hard to imagine like what it feels like. And so we actually took them in a live board in the middle of Australia. And we were sleeping in this tiny bunks, having 2-minute showers. And that was like, an experience of what this might feel like when someone is trying to stay in a limited service hotel for a long time. Yeah. It's like small, the space is small, like there's so many constraints. So one thing is definitely if you can get them along with you in the journey when you're researching, that's the best, especially if it's a team, like you can totally bring them along. And the second is actually trying to recreate as much of the sensory experiences that you have experienced, when you're presenting. So one thing we did recently was, we had to take our clients back into, India, and this was in New York. And we actually presented, like we started with Indian food. And so as they entered, they could smell this food. And then we had this beautiful gallery full of photographs. Not only that, we had this genius researcher who had captured ambient sounds as we were in India, like of horns or of people chatting, of music. And we had that playing in the background. Yeah. So we literally kind of recreated, the whole country and the ambience, for our clients, just being in New York. Yeah. And of course, then the stories of people. And if you can record those and let them be played back in their own voice, that's really powerful too. Yeah. Yeah.
I have one as well. Building on that, we often have the saying, get it out of a deck and into an experience. So I think a lot of organizations share their stories or insights via a deck, death by presentation. And as much as we create experiences is what's most important. So for example, building on this, we had a organization that dealt with low-income families and providing services and spaces and housing and things for low-income families. And one of the most important experiences of low-income families is, every monetary choice is a choice. Like they can't purchase everything. So every decision has this weighing criteria. So when we had one of the workshops with the client organization, we did what we call, an analogous experience, where everyone in the workshop, and these are our clients, were given goldfish currency, and you had 10 goldfish to start the day, and you had to use your goldfish to make choices about what you could get out of the activity that day. So you had to. It cost 2 goldfish to use the bathroom. If you wanted to keep your cell phone that day, it cost something. If you wanted to keep your shoes, it pay something. If you couldn't afford everything, your name was written on the board as a shaming. So you had this public shaming. You could exchange things for more goldfish. Now everything about it was like, I kind of laugh, but it made everyone kind of angry and just uncomfortable enough that there were some people that were really, really uncomfortable. But it put everyone in. It created a physical experience that resulted in emotional understanding. They still talk about it. So. Any course so much, but This is where even if you can't create the exact an ancillary experience or an alternative,
Yeah,
is amazing.
yeah. The next one is from Juliana. How do you identify good information that will give you interesting insights?
Oh,
That's an interesting one.
I haven't had a chance to think
Yeah.
about this one. I'm going to need a second on this one.
Yeah.
It's a great question. Do you have some?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, again, I mean, you know, the insights don't just have to come from interviews. You know, you can look at trends, you can look at other research, you can look at, you know, analogous experiences or industries that have tackled similar problems. And of course, like, you know, the one thing is it has to be authentic, it has to be rigorous enough. All of the information that you have, you need to know it comes from a quality source. You know, and that's when you start to, I mean, that's like the baseline. It has to come from a source that you can trust and that other people can trust. And then the second one is using your, you know, judgment to filter. But again, like information, I mean, we live in a world of information today, and you know, stories actually often help you to cut through the noise to get to the insights. So that's what we would say to that one.
Yeah. Building on that, the information source matters, and then this is where insights diverges from science. It is an art in science. So there is, so we call it informed intuition. So I do want to be informed. I do want good data sources. And then I want all of you to have the confidence to trust your instincts, your hunches, your intuition on what matters out of that. Absolutely. And it's you know, it's often, I think, less about professionally and more about what are the interesting stories that I would tell, you know, a friend at a bar, or, you know, the things that I would want to tweet about. Like often those little hunches that you have are the things that are lead to interesting insights.
Absolutely. And like you might remember a thing that Co might have said in the instructions is, you know, what information, can you do something with this? You know, is it actionable? Like just information for the sake of information doesn't lead to interesting insights. It's something that you have to be able to affect. And that's kind of another filter to use, whether it's good or not. Do you want to take this one?
I can take this one. And again, thank you, everyone. I love all the questions. And some of them we are going to answer more towards the end, too, like what's the next course? We'll get to some of these things. For now, we'll carry on. Oh, yes, I like the necklace, too. Isn't it a great necklace? I know. Berlin.
Yes, it was just a Christmas market in Berlin. It is actually made out of a ceramic, and I bought it, at a market. I call it my pigeon egg necklace. It's just like a bird nested an egg over here. But thank you for the compliment.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Move the camera a bit. All right. This question comes from I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, from Twitter. After gathering insights, how do you get to the innovate part?
Isn't that juicy?
Isn't that juicy? So, excellent question. That is going to be the entire focus of the next course. So we are going to be moving into prototyping and insights into action in the next course, which is under development right now. And we barely touch on it here, but at the end of your project, remember you have your 3 insights. And what's most important there is those are, I call it it's the kindling to ignite a really wonderful fire of ideas. So if you take any one of those insights and transform it into what we call a how might we statement. So a how might we statement is how might we make Twitter more accessible for people who don't usually tweet? How might we design a space that invites creativity? So any of the insights that you have can be turned into this generative question, which how opens up a lot of possibilities. Might, you know, it's meant to be optimistic and encouraging. We, not done alone, how might we do X? From there, we then start brainstorming, generating ideas that we then begin to prototype. So you just had this Insights to Innovation, or Insights Seen with Fresh Eyes, is chapter 1 in the innovation journey.
That's awesome. And for everyone who just saw a guy walk past us, that's Roberto, in our office. He again wears several hats. Yeah, and literally keeps our office moving. So we have another question from Mackenzie, which says, which team size is best for design thinking process, and which disciplines do you mix in the team? This is a great question. Personally, I've observed that a size of, I don't know what you feel about this code, but a 3 seems to be like a magic number somehow, because you have one person to actually like do the vote, you know, when teams agree or disagree. Like there's one person, and then you can actually move forward. You know, but having said that, we have some projects which are huge, which require a lot of different disciplines and teams. You know, how do you decide which disciplines? Again, you know, typically it's a mix of people, you know, like who and me, who are design researchers getting into the insights, and then designers on the team. And that depends. If we have a project which needs business modeling, we'll have a business designer. So it depends on what the project and what the ask is. And yeah.
So I agree. 3 tends to be, depending on the question size, the minimum viable team. And then often any team will be, always be a core team. And then you inflate at different moments with different types of expertise. I can't draw backwards.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm trying. You know, at this moment where we are brainstorming, we might blow out the team to include up to 10 people. And then get small again. You want to make sense of it.
Absolutely.
And then we might blow out the team to include, you know, 2 build experts to get really tangible with the ideas.
Absolutely.
So there's often this undulating process. The trick is, you don't want everyone involved at all points.
Yes.
There are points in the process where there's too many people, and there are points where a team will divide up into individual tasks. Like you need time to think. You need time to dwell into it. So we're very much an undulating.
I love that. Yeah, it's
process.
like typically when you're diverging, when you're generating ideas, when you're brainstorming, you need more people. And when they're trying to converge, when you're trying to synthesize, you need a smaller group, you know, to first do it and then play it back to the larger group. So yeah, so it depends very much on like what is the requirement, which disciplines you need. And yeah, that's the best part about IDEO, is just having this amazing mix of people. And no 2 people are looking at the same insight in the same way. And that's just amazing.
Yeah. The disciplines to mix in the team, the more diverse, the better. It so often sounds counterintuitive, because, you know, if you have people who think and the process is very different, it sounds like it's really going to hold things up. But actually, it's what you need, because no one person can hold all of the knowledge or skills. So I'd say every team usually is extremely diverse. So some common combinations might be a design researcher, an interaction designer, and a comms designer. Another combination might be a business designer with a product engineer with a comms designer, or a storyteller.
Yeah.
I love that combination.
Yeah, and I feel like one other lens to add is like a mix of experts and novices. Like sometimes you find that it's great to have someone who knows a little bit about the topic, but then someone who really is very new. And that kind of new person can ask some very, you know, interesting questions that might seem naive, but can then throw up some really, you know, cool questioning directions. So that's also a good mix to incorporate in a team.
Yeah, I want to build on that. There's one project we did. I love the novice angle. We had one project. It was to design it was working with a bike company. And we have a ton of bike enthusiasts here at IDEO, and we intentionally did not allow any of them on the team. There were no bike experts on the team, which is important, because when you know something, it's possible to know too much. The whole theme of seeing with new eyes is to kind of see beyond your comfort zone. So novices and people who are new to a space actually often bring the most richness to enabling new things to happen. So that's a humbling position. There's been times when I know that I'm becoming ineffective because I know too much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, there you go. There's Juliana from Colombia, who says, is there a formula insight should have, like who, why, and tension? You know that code? Do you want to get that one?
Yeah. I think, you know, formulas are good to get started, because you just have to constrain and understand the space. You know, in our case, insights, they're authentic, they're revealing, they inspire action. So that's, I mean, that's the formula I have. But there's always yes, at minimum, because you just have to get started, especially if it's a new space.
Yeah.
But then don't feel so constrained by it.
I mean, I love what Chris said in one of the courses, you know, it's like it needs to be memorable, it needs to be sticky, it needs to be provocative, it needs to be actionable. And fundamentally, I mean, the way we look at insights is it is the why. It is the why must you do something in some way and not in another way, or for some audience and not another audience. It is the why of like your design. And so it's the foundation. And which is why, and again, like going back, it needs to be actionable. It needs to be, you know, something that people are inspired by, you know, listening to, and designers feel compelled to design to it. So that would be our formula for it. Yeah.
I saw a kid question. I want the kid question. It just came in. I feel like Juliana.
What was that one?
No. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, this is that one?
It was, you know, in doing research with kids, do you do it all in one shot, or do you kind of recommend, sorry if I'm not going to see it, it scrolled away. Do you recommend doing it all in one shot or kind of repeat visits? I love this question. So we do a lot of work with kids, and yes, if I can't do repeat, I always do them in pairs. It's so much more interesting. You know, kids naturally often have a buddy that they like to engage with. And again, I do good ethics around kids. I'll always start with the parent and the whole family. And then ideally, you create a space where one or two people can stay with the parent and then stay within eye and earshot and get the kids in their space to get to the real stories. Repeat visits is always my favorite. For example, we just did a project with a school group, and we actually engaged an entire panel of teenagers. So there were about 8 experts who were part of the design team, and every week we would meet with them and get their perspectives on both, you know, what was happening in their world and have them inform the design. So I would say kids, this applies to everyone who you're designing with. If you can have more repeat engagements and engage them as co-designers.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And also, like, you know, using techniques like once we were trying to interview high school students who tend to be shy or, you know, not really be interested. And we asked them to take us to, you know, for the interview, take us to their favorite place on the college campus. And that instantly, like, made them feel valued. And they actually took us to these amazing spots which we would not have discovered on campus. And then we sat under the tree on a bench, and the whole conversation was just so much better for them and for us, and just fun. So yeah, like taking them in an environment that they are comfortable and familiar and feel like they can open up to you is the best, rather than like forcing them into the adult world.
Yes, we're looking at the Twitter feed right now. This is a question from Kevin. Can you tell a story about a time that this approach crashed and burned and what you learned from it? Yes. I'd say we run into challenges when people are not always ready for it. So I have one example of working with a beverage company, and the client it was kind of his first time with human-centered design and being out in the field. And we went out to a house that was his core customer. Like, this was a family that buys all of their core products, and it was a very low-income family, and the house was messy, and the kids were kind of disengaged, and it was an uncomfortable environment. And he was so angry and uncomfortable the entire time. So even though I prepped him on what to expect, even though this is exactly the right people for us to talk to, he was incredibly uncomfortable. And so it's my job, my first and foremost job whenever I'm in someone's home, is to make sure that they feel comfortable. So my focus was on the family, making sure that they were comfortable and being really respectful. And then, you know, I know that the client is someone who I'm going to spend time with right after this, and I'm going to make sure that they feel comfortable too. But I'm not going to show such a level of disrespect in someone's home. So we ended up shortening the interview in a very ethical, respectful way. And we left the interview, and we drove like 1 block down the street, and the client, stopped the car and jumped out and started chain smoking and yelling at me, and it's it's important. So there's more I could have done. To prep. These things do happen. They definitely do happen. So there's more I could have done to prep, and I think it is important to just know. I do much better at this now, to just really kind of give people the range of what can and often does happen, so that they feel okay about what's the process. Yeah.
I mean, it does require a leap of faith to undergo this process. Especially if you come from a world of left brain thinking, and data and analysis, and it takes a huge thing to just go to someone's home and sit down and chat with them and get into their inner world. So yes, I think the approach is pretty sound. It's people who are engaged, or topics or issues that might sometimes just go a little haywire. But again, there's always a learning. I mean, at IDEO, we are passionate about every opportunity to learn, including from failure. So yeah, cool.
Those are the ones we learn the most from. Embrace failure. It's how you grow. Yes. We're about 10 minutes more, and I want to take a couple moments to look at a couple worksheets of that people have submitted, and then we'll be able to do at least one or two more questions before we round out. I want to show some examples of how a lot of you were doing the extremes exercise. I was so impressed and inspired by how a lot of you thought, and so I just wanted to acknowledge that and just showcase a couple. I love the variety with which all of you approach this task. We gave one example.
Yeah.
Priti and I are going to show a couple of our favorites. But I'll speak to this one. Yeah. This one was one of my favorites. This was how you design a library to engage more storytelling. And what I loved about this person, I'm sorry, this is Maria. What I loved is that, I know you won't be able to see it on the screen, but she really thought through, again, stretching out on different lenses. So in this case, the relationship to the children in the space. So from, grandparents who are there, or neighbors with a borrowed child, which is absolutely the types of people, to teachers of entire classes, versus parents with their own children is probably the most common. I also like this point too of the activities in the space. So from kind of the core, I'm borrowing a library book, to I'm only interested in the digital media and digital borrowing, or I don't go to libraries, but I access library content in cafes. So I really enjoyed, this just showed kind of the range of what we call use cases.
Yeah.
I would stretch even further. I noticed on a lot of them, it's really easy to come up with behaviors, you see, extremes, with demographics. What I always push people to think about is attitudes. So attitudes and motivations behind that. So for example, with the 70-year-old, the 70-year-old challenge, we often think about, well, health. They're in good health or they're in poor health. I'm more interested in things like their attitude around their health. Everybody has some health need at some point, so you may as well ignore that label and go instead do you feel like you have control over? My attitude is that I might have health needs, but I feel and believe that I can do something, versus the locus of control is beyond me. It just happened to me. So I love to think about attitudes as a way to explore extremes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. I love this one as well, just for the clarity and the simplicity. And again, this is, I think, Louis, and he's talking about different aspects of say health. Someone who has chronic disability, and another one who's a professional athlete. So that's such a contrast with someone in terms of health. Mobility is again bedbound patients versus road trip travelers. So in terms of lifestyle extremes as well. Or social interaction, which is someone who's a recluse and introvert versus someone who's very extroverted, a socialite. So yeah, lifestyle, attitudes, demographics, as well as behaviors. All of these are great slices for extremes. So yeah.
Looking at give us a sec. We're looking at some more I love this one. All right. Twitter question, is design thinking simply about crazy brainstorming? Was it just one piece of the puzzle? That is, I think, like all things, the perception of one piece often can seem like it dominates the entire thing. So yes, crazy brainstorming does get a certain airplay. And it's one piece of the process. And what's really important to know is it's a very distinct type of activity. So we of all of the rules that we have around design thinking, there's not a lot of rules. And the craziest one is brainstorming. We have rules around it because if you treat ideation like every other process, you're immediately going to start judging. You're going to, when you want to come up with ideas, you can't help but know and acknowledge all the constraints. Like if you want to design a new kitchen utensil, you're automatically going to be thinking about, oh, but it has to fit in the dishwasher, and it has to be, it has to be manufactured in a cost-effective way, and it's the fastest way to shut down and limit the range of possibilities. Mm-hmm. So brainstorming is intentionally, and I would say must be, treated with a different set of rules. And the reason why it's crazy is because you have to engage. It's like being inside the golden circle. You have to enable a new set of rules, a new set of mindsets, so you can get to more creative spaces. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, yes, it might, like, the image of a designer, like wearing fancy hipster clothes and, like, just having these ideas in a room, it's common, but actually is just as rigorous and scientific as, what a scientist would do. Right. We just, when we are brainstorming, it has a certain rigor to it. And it seems like very wild and very chaotic and, like, very, like, up in the air, but it is for a reason. And there is a way we start to systematically make sense out of it. So I would say design thinking and brainstorming is one part of it, but design thinking as a process is fairly, rigorous with few rules, but, much more about, it's a sensibility. It's not really, much more about methods and stuff. And so,
we are going to start to wrap up. I'm really excited to share the next course. So the next course coming up is Ideas to Action with, I can say who, yes, with a wonderful colleague and partner here at IDEO, Brendan Boyle, who runs our toy lab and has been involved with helping clients and organizations and teams ideate and prototype in really playful and rigorous and amazing ways. So it's going to be a lot of focus on how you take this insight and turn it into action through iterative prototyping and lots of rapid iterative prototyping. So that is coming soon, and we can't wait. And we will have more, all our updates around new courses can be found on IDEOU.com. And we are, and I just want to say too, thank you for all of you who take the time to give us feedback and help us. We are learning, and we are so excited to respond and grow with you, especially in regards to the different courses. And with that, what else? Yes, session and sharing with the community. We will keep tuning in and answering what we can.
Yeah, these questions are great. I mean, yeah, absolutely amazing. It just forces us to think about our own process much more. This is great. Thank you guys for staying up late or waking up early morning and joining us for this amazing session.
Yeah, we really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep on learning. Keep being confident. All right. Bye.
Bye.